As South Africa marks Freedom Day, unemployment, corruption, crime, gender-based violence are just some of the things that have characterized our society and continue to be the biggest challenges that we face. What is the state of democracy? What is the state of South Africa 28 years into freedom? Former Constitutional Court Judge Yakoob joins us tonight, and Amnesty International South Africa Executive Director Shenilla Mohamed. Good evening to both of you, and thank you for your time. Shenilla, let me perhaps begin with you. Let's talk about your own reflections of where South Africa is today, and more pointedly, what is the state of our democracy?
Good evening, Kathy, and good evening to your viewers. Well, you know, I mean, it's hard to say, it's hard to celebrate Freedom Day, even though there have been many, many gains, you know, since 1994. I mean, we've seen, you know, we have a wonderful constitution, which the judge will attest to. We have, you know, we have freedom of movement, freedom of expression, all these things that we didn't have during apartheid. But, you know, the reality is, Kathy, we still have many, many challenges. And I think, you know, one of the biggest challenges we're seeing is that South Africa is one of the most unequal countries in the world. And, you know, we have added to that, we've seen corruption, we've seen, you know, it's one of the unsafest places for women in the world. The gender-based violence cases just keep on rising. I mean, from October to December last year, we saw over 11,000 cases of rape, and those were only reported cases. Imagine the unreported ones. So, you know, we have massive challenges, and I think, you know, that until people's human rights, dignity, economic, social, cultural rights are realized, I feel like, you know, Freedom Day will just be another day on the calendar. And I also feel that, you know, people will continue to be unhappy because, you know, with your rights comes dignity, and dignity really is about having a roof over your head, having water, having, you know, being safe, having medical care, your children having a quality education. And, you know, we're not seeing that for the majority of the people. And so it's very hard today to sit back and say, you know, we have come a long, long way. I feel like we still have a longer way to go.
Zach, let me bring you in here and begin also with your own reflections about where we are as a society.
Okay, let me start with the positives. The positives are very hard sometimes, but the positive certainly is that we are truly an African country. So, before 1994, you would not have been speaking to me on this channel. I would not have been speaking to you. Shenilla would not have been here. And if we walk around the streets of Johannesburg and Durban, we would have seen white people all over the place. We would have heard white people on the radio and so on and so on. So certainly, it does my heart a lot of good to know that African people, this is now a country for all of us African people. And I am very, very happy about that. And many of you are too young to remember those days when African, I was African too, so I don't want to say there was a category of African people who were stuck in the townships, couldn't come into the town, had nothing, and there have been a lot of improvements in the position of a lot of people. And we have a great deal of middle class improvement, and the country is truly becoming more and more African. Our newspapers, our media, our restaurants, our everything has changed, but we are probably 50% of the way there, and it will take a long time more to get there. The negative side is worrying because I think the most important thing is for the majority of people in our country to have enough food, enough water, to have a house, and to have clothes. I must say with regret that I doubt very much, and I hope he is right, the President's assertion in his speech today that 81% of South Africans have formal housing. I really think that is a problem. And I know about the new houses this government builds, and it's a problem. So we remain poor, most of us. I'm not. I'm very comfortably well off. But most of us African people, the majority of us, remain poor, remain miserable, have hardly any food, any clothes, any water. The corruption takes everything away. So I think that we need to work at it. I just want to say one more thing quickly, Kathy, that many people would say, you see, it's this African government. You wanted an African government now. You got it, and you see what you get. That is nonsense. It is not. Corruption is not an African thing. It is a government thing all over the world, whites and all. And our government, unfortunately, has not been able to stray clear of it. The majority of the African people I meet are admirable, honorable, hard-working, and wonderful. And we must take the law into our hands now and make sure that the government changes.
Zach, when we look at some of the issues that you've raised around people having and needing access to water, food, housing, it speaks to the socioeconomic rights that Shenilla was referencing. And yet we know that in our Constitution, one of the things that is very clearly stated in the Bill of Rights is, you know, that not only are all individuals, do they have inherent dignity, but it is incumbent for that dignity to be protected and for the environment under which they live to be created that, you know, that allows them to live a life that is dignified. And unfortunately, when we look at the reflections of South Africans today, that seems to be one of the biggest failures of what this democratic government has been.
It is. And I'd like to make a distinction between the failure of the Constitution and the failure of the government. The Constitution cannot achieve things. It is a vision. It obliges all of us to work hard to achieve that vision. I try very hard in my life to achieve that vision in every way I can. I'm afraid that there are too many people in our country who, as a result of self-interest, want to destroy that vision. But that too many are probably 400 or 500 out of a population of 50 million. You may ask, how do they get into power? That's part of the problem, because when the majority of our people are illiterate and they somehow, in my cynical moments, I think it may be that the government wants people to remain unemployed, because it's only when they remain unemployed that you can give them one T-shirt and give them 10 Rand or 20 Rand and ask them to vote for you and bus them along and ask them to stand everywhere. The problem is that when you are poor and you have no food and no water, you are open to manipulation. And I'm not criticizing anybody. I'm saying this. If I were living in a rural area today and I had no food or any water, and a Jacob Zuma supporter came to me and offered me a T-shirt, a beer, some bread, and a bit of meat, and asked me to take a free bus ride to Johannesburg or to Pietermaritzburg and stand there and toy, I must say I cannot tell you that I will not do it. So that is part of our problem. The poverty of people is there, and all of us have got together to fix it.
Shenilla, today has been incredibly sobering because, you know, historically a day like Freedom Day is often filled with lots of celebration. We hear a lot about the Rainbow Nation, etc., etc. It's been changing over the last couple of years. There's a lot more forthright and frank conversation about where we are as a society.
think, Kathy, people have gotten tired. You know, they've gotten tired of being fed false promises. They've gotten tired of being told that things are going to happen and then nothing happens. You know, we've just witnessed the horrendous situation in KwaZulu-Natal with the floods. But, you know, important to remember that, you know, as well as climate change, you know, one of the challenges has been the inability or the lack of government attention to maintaining infrastructure and making sure that, you know, the people are placed in safe places. I mean, there were some communities that were actually put there by the state, and the damage that was caused by the last floods, which I think happened in the 80s, 87 or so, you know, all of that damage was not dealt with adequately. So, you know, we've seen that, you know, the people have become really, really dejected, Kathy. And I think, you know, the COVID-19 and the two plus years where people were also, you know, locked up in their homes, where people were dying and jobs were lost. And then, of course, we had the riots that happened. I mean, there's a lot that has happened in the past couple of years. And I think, you know, if you were to look at what is the result of all of that, well, people have gotten poorer. People still, you know, if they didn't have water before, the chance of them getting water now is even less. You know, people don't have quality jobs. Unemployment is soaring. The rate of GBV versus prosecution rate is just, you know, there's just no comparative. So if you look at it from an ordinary South African perspective, your lives are not getting better. And this is for the majority of the people. I mean, yes, we have access to education, but the majority of children do not have a quality education. And then, of course, during COVID-19, the government put into place, you know, online education when a lot of the schools don't even have infrastructure, let alone internet. So we're seeing children that are falling through the cracks. We're seeing people falling through the cracks. And I think, you know, the challenge we're facing now is it's very hard for people to romanticize the past. I think the time of Nelson Mandela and, you know, that rainbow nation has been, you know, has been pushed aside by the harsh realities that people have had to face. And I think, you know, when you don't have food on your table, when you open your tap and there is no water, or there is no water that you are able to drink, when people are dying because there is no proper health care, when, you know, your children are falling in pit latrines and dying in feces, then it's very difficult to be, you know, sort of upbeat. But you know what, Kathy, I mean, I think that this can be translated. I think what we're also saying, to go to the judge's approach of being positive, I mean, I think that, you know, what we are seeing is this tiredness that has set in will actually be the start of people taking back their power. And I think people have realized that, you know, when apartheid fell, or, you know, 28 years ago, it was because of people power. It was because the people fought. And I think people realize now that the fight is not over. The fight has to continue for their human rights, their dignity. And I think, you know, once people realize that they have the power, then, you know, they will use it. And I think, you know, the reality is that we have to make sure that people know their rights in order to be able to exercise them. And as the judge said, it's very easy to instrumentalize poor people. But I also think that, you know, people who know their rights, they have a responsibility to act. And I think that, you know, so if I open my tap today, Kathy, and I have water, or my children are going to a good school, then, you know, why do I sit back and do nothing while the rest of the people in this country don't have the same liberties that I do? And I think, you know, it's really important for us now to really practice this Ubuntu sort of theology, or whatever you want to call it, because I feel like until we are all free, none of us are free. Sure. So if you're sitting in a comfortable home in winter and other people are dying of cold in shacks, then, you know, you are not free either.
Zach, let me give you the last word here and perhaps build on what Shenilla has spoken about here, which is the power that people have. And the Constitution is really the legal instrument that gives all South Africans that power and gives them some basis to be able to fight for what is due to them in as far as their rights are concerned.
Absolutely. And the positive thing is that just as we did in the past with great sacrifice, we now need to start organizing and mobilizing our people, all of us, together, And the trouble is that if I was 20 or 30 years younger, I could have started the process and done a great deal. I can't go to a house meeting every day anymore. I don't have the energy, unfortunately, to do it. But we need to organize our people. I think we need a brand new political party. A political party which organizes on the basis that we need to ensure that we're going to form a government at the next election which is going to support the people. It'll take some time. There's no quick fixes. But the only way is to develop the power of the people. And we can have another conference for a long time about how. But I agree with Shenilla that the powers of the people are absolutely there. And all we need is to work at it and to make it happen. And all of us need to work together.
Do you think, Zach, sorry to come in there, that out of the over 100 political parties that we have registered with our IEC today, that none of them actually offer that none of them actually stand for the people?
I have not seen anybody who says all we want to do is ensure that we eliminate poverty, we bring about true equality, we make sure that everybody has a house, we make sure everybody has water, everybody has food. That is our sole objective, that is the main objective. Everything else is, by the way, nobody has said that.
Let's leave it there for tonight. Former Constitutional Court Judge Zach Yakoob and Executive Director at Amnesty International South Africa, Shenilla Mohamed, thank you for being part of this conversation.